Okay, well this bit is slightly annoying. AQA will not let me show you the actual questions even though they were already done and dusted last year and you've already done them in your mocks. So I have written a new one that's exactly the same format. So the good news is this question might actually come up because AQA haven't set this one. So you'll always be told to read the extract and where it's from. And the reason that is important is that you want to deal with the context of the play, and that means you have to say why this extract happens here. Why is that important to the drama or our understanding of the character or our understanding of the themes? Okay, so why does Shakespeare put that scene here? At this point in the play, Macbeth is speaking, so you get told who's speaking, which is super helpful, and you get more context. He has just decided to tell Lady Macbeth that they should not kill Duncan. Okay, then you have the extract, and it will be that long. We'll go through that in a minute. And then you have the actual question. The wording will always be starting with this speech. And then it will always be an explain question. And it will always ask you something about how, because that forces you to evaluate. And you should remember that in order to evaluate, you want to have more than one, hopefully my students, sorry, I'm putting one together. Hopefully my students are shouting out at me, interpretation, Mr. Salles. Yes, more than one interpretation. Okay, well then it will give me a keyword that tells me what I want to write about. So here the keyword is influenced, and I have to write about how Macbeth is influenced by his wife Lady Macbeth. Now remember, I can't just say he's totally influenced by Lady Macbeth, because if I do that I won't evaluate. And that's why the question says how far. And that means I have to think, well, it's not just going to be Lady Macbeth, it's also going to be his own ambition that does it, and it's also potentially going to be the supernatural, witchcraft, and it's also going to be his own hamartia, which is linked to the ambition. You remember that from the beginning. Okay, and that forces me to have more than one interpretation, doesn't it? Okay. Well, the next most important bit is the bullet points. Now, what's cool about this is the examiners say, write about how Shakespeare presents Macbeth in this speech and how Shakespeare presents Macbeth in the play as a whole. But the examiner doesn't mind how much of that speech you use. So your answer could be 90% based on the speech, or it could be 10% based on the speech. There isn't really anything in the mark scheme that tells you how much you need to write. Similarly, although the question says starting with this speech, that's just to help you find quotations to write about. Okay, it's there to help you start. Many of my students panic and think I don't know how to start, and the examiner doesn't care how you start. They want you to start with your thesis, your idea, as I explained, of what Shakespeare's up to, but then you can get your evidence, sorry, there's my thesis bit, then you can get your evidence from anywhere in the text, and they don't really care where that comes from. So I'm going to recommend a super easy method to you. Do not do my method just because I'm recommending it. If you've got a method already from the exam, do the method that you practice in the mock, if it's working. But the easiest way to do it is to find something in the speech and then link it to something in the play. So I will try and do that for you live. So we will proceed no further in this business. He hath honoured me of late, and I have brought golden opinions from all sorts of people, which would be worn now in their newest gloss, not cast aside so soon. Well, let's just leap in. We've got the use of we here, which links us back to the idea of the patriarchal society. So normally we would expect a husband to act in his own interests, and his wife would be socially inferior to him. But here, she is not inferior, she is an equal partner. Now I can link that directly to a quotation elsewhere in the play, because I remember when he calls her my dearest partner in greatness, and he does that when he sends the letter to her telling her about the witch's prophecies. So I can already go to another part of the play to back up my point of view. Next, I notice the word business. Now, what's interesting about this is it echoes something that Lady Macbeth says. She says, "Put this knight's great business into my dispatch." In other words, she tells him that she is going to kill Duncan herself. Now, the fact that he is echoing her language here suggests that, again, this is a partnership. He is using the same language as his wife. Therefore, he is heavily influenced by her. But we're not arguing that he's influenced by her because she's manipulative. He's influenced by her because this is a loving relationship and it is a real partnership. And that's probably different from the way you've looked at the play before. Now I can also focus on his ambition. So he talks about golden opinions, which suggests that he is ambitious for reputation, that's the opinions, but the language he uses of wealth here, golden, refers to his ambition. Now, if we look at it that way, then it's not just the love of his wife and the fact that he's attacking the patriarchal society that leads him to kill Macbeth. It's also because he is more ambitious for wealth and power. So really easy to go from the text to the play as a whole. Well, let's look at Lady Macbeth's words. "Was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself? Hath it slept since, and wakes it now to look so green and pale, at which it did so freely?" So I'm going to focus on this image here. Obviously, I'm going to remember that this is a metaphor. And what's the purpose of this metaphor? Well, it's to accuse Macbeth of cowardice. Now, this is bizarre because he has just come from defeating Norway. He's defeated the Norwegians, and here I can put in my quotation, "unseamed him from the nave to the chops." I won't write that all out, you know. And he is called by the sergeant and Duncan, brave Macbeth. So we know in battle, Macbeth is the very opposite of a coward. He is completely fearless. But Lady Macbeth uses this taunt because perhaps she realises that this is also Macbeth's hamartia, not just his ambition, but his sense of self, that secretly he feels he is weak. And this is his own fear of himself. What can I link that to later in the play? Well, I can link that to Lady Macbeth's words, where she says, "Thou art too, yet do I fear thy nature, thou art too full of the milk of human kindness." I'll just put that in abbreviated form so you can see how I constantly go from the text to the play as a whole. Now that's, for me, a super easy way of writing the essay. Now I should make clear that I'm not spending all my time underlining quotations here and making these notes. This is not how I plan in the exam. Why not? Well, it's devastatingly obvious, but I'll explain it anyway. This is why not. This is my exam paper. And unless I put writing here, I get no marks. I get nothing if I haven't got any writing here. Okay, so I must write on the exam paper. What I write on here counts for nothing at all. Now, what I've tried to show you is I haven't had to think about this. I've just read something, and as soon as I've noticed anything at all, I just start writing about it. I don't even have to know how I'm going to end this in the exam because it isn't supposedly an essay. So I'm just going to write. If I go back to the front of the exam paper, I've already primed myself for the things that I want to write about. Okay, I know I'm going to write about this stuff. And because I've done that, it makes it super easy to find stuff to say about the quotations. So that's method number one. Method number two is even more radical. So you start with what you wanted to write about. Then when I read the question about Lady Macbeth, I know, whoops, okay, how is Macbeth persuaded? Well, which of these two themes are going to be most important? Well, it's going to be the patriarchy, isn't it? And it's also going to be whether the witches and the supernatural. So I can begin my writing with whether I think the witches influenced Macbeth. And I can do that without even looking at the extract. Yep, so I can go straight in to the supernatural. I'll just show you how I might do that. Because who knows, the witches might come up. That would be really cool, wouldn't it, if the witches came up? Because I'm going to prepare you for it now. So here we go. Macbeth's hamartia is his ambition to be king. This is, I want to suggest that Lady Macbeth contributes to this. This is due to his love for Lady Macbeth, whom he views as his dearest partner in greatness. This is exam writing, so I'm not worried about being too legible, okay?
Moreover, he wants to attack his patriarchal society, which denies women power and influence. Therefore, he wishes to give her what the weird sisters, that's a quotation, so I can put have, and then I remember the quotation, promised that she should become queen. Okay? However, his ambition leads him to embrace evil as Lady Macbeth does when she is filled from the crown to the toe, top full of direst cruelty. So I can carry that on. We might, using tentative language here, we might infer that Macbeth, already in love with his fiend-like wife, is actually attracted to evil. Consequently, when the witches meet him, he is already predisposed, so primed if you like, to accept their prophecies as reasons to commit regicide. This is why Banquo notices that Macbeth is wrapped withal, as though under their spell. This may not be because of any supernatural power, but because he wishes so strongly to believe them. Okay?
Now I can start writing about the extract. So I don't have to start with the extract at all.